The Galactic Council had been the backbone of the universe's power for millennia. Beings of unimaginable strength, intellect, and resources governed the stars, enforcing order across the vast stretches of space. They had seen species rise and fall, watched civilizations grow and crumble, and had always believed their rule was unchallenged. They held no doubts. No one could threaten their reign. Until Earth. The humans had been an afterthought in the Council's eyes, a speck on the map of the universe. Their planet was just another developing world, teeming with potential but nowhere near the sophistication required to command the stars. Even after they managed to leave their atmosphere and venture into space, the Council saw them as nothing more than a nuisance, an amusing curiosity, perhaps, but not a threat. The Council convened on their massive central station, each member looking down at the galaxy with an air of superiority. They had seen species far older and far more advanced than Earthlings, and none of them had managed to challenge the might of the Galactic Empire. Yet, as the meeting began, the humans had requested to speak. Their envoy, Ambassador Claire Reynolds, stepped forward, a human among giants, a small figure in the grand scheme of the Council. Reynolds knew the risks. She had heard the mocking laughter before her, seen the dismissive glances cast by the galactic leaders. Her people had asked for a seat at the table, but the Council wasn't even considering their application. To them, Earth was just a little planet with big ideas. Nothing more. "You come to us." The elder Vornik, a being with smooth, silver skin and enormous, reflective eyes, boomed, seeking a place among the stars. "What could your species possibly bring to this council? You are primitive, your technology is laughable, and your fleet is non-existent. Do you honestly believe you stand any chance?" The room fell silent as Reynolds stood tall, unshaken by the scorn. She had expected this. She knew the council thought little of her people, but she wasn't here to beg for their approval. She was here to remind them of something they'd forgotten. Humanity was not to be underestimated. "We may not be your equals yet," she began, her voice firm but calm. "But we are more than you realize. We've faced insurmountable odds on our home planet and survived. We've reached the stars not with the resources of your empires, but with the ingenuity of our minds and the strength of our resolve. Humanity may be small, but we are not weak." The laughter that followed stung like 1,000 arrows. The council members snickered, exchanging glances as they wondered how this human had the gall to speak of survival when the galactic history was full of species who had failed to stand against them. Yet, despite the mockery, Reynolds remained composed, knowing that words alone would never change their minds. Actions would. "You are welcome to believe that we are beneath you," she continued, "but soon you will learn that humanity is not a species to be dismissed so easily. Our potential has only begun to surface. The galaxy is about to see what happens when you underestimate us." Her words hung in the air, heavy with a promise that sent a subtle shiver down the spines of a few council members. Some of them, though not outwardly showing it, felt a fleeting sense of uncertainty. Could they be wrong? Could the humans truly be capable of something more? The meeting ended, the council members hardly acknowledging her departure. Yet, as Reynolds left the chamber, her mind was already on the next phase of her plan. Earth may not have the strength to face the Galactic Council head-on, but there was something they did possess that the Council had overlooked: time. While the galaxy's elites scoffed at humanity, they had been secretly preparing. Underneath the surface of Earth's seemingly simple civilization, a hidden network of military, scientific, and industrial power had been quietly assembling. Ships capable of faster-than-light travel, weapons beyond anything the Council had encountered, and technology that could cloak entire fleets. It was only a matter of time before they would make their move. Back on Earth, deep within a secret underground facility, the first of humanity's secret fleet stood ready. The ships were sleek and formidable, their designs unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were built with a singular purpose: to show the galaxy that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. But they would wait, biding their time until the moment was right. The Council thought humanity was too insignificant to matter. They thought the human species would forever remain beneath their notice. But Earth had hidden its power well, and soon it would rise from the shadows. The fleet set course, cloaked and undetected. It was the calm before the storm. Little did the Council know, their mocking laughter would be their last. The real power of Earth had just begun to emerge, and the galaxy was about to change forever. The hum of the engines was almost imperceptible, but to the crew aboard the fleet's flagship, it was the sound of destiny being realized. The ship, named Vanguard, drifted in the shadow of Earth's moon, hidden beneath the veil of advanced cloaking technology. It was a marvel of human ingenuity, sleek, powerful, and virtually invisible to any scanner in the galaxy. This was the fleet the Galactic Council had laughed at, the fleet they thought would never come. And now it was ready. Commander Sarah Jacobs stood on the bridge, gazing out at the void of space through the tinted glass, her arms folded across her chest. The stars were like pinpricks of light, distant and cold, but her focus was sharp, her eyes tracing the path ahead. She could feel it, the weight of history pressing down on her. This wasn't just about revenge or proving the Council wrong. This was about survival. Earth had to send a message to the galaxy, one that would never be forgotten. Ready for deployment, Commander, came a voice from behind her. It was Lieutenant Marcus Singh, her second in command, his voice steady as always. Sarah nodded. Good. Let's show them we're not just a speck in the galaxy. Prepare all ships for the first wave. It's time to make our move. The bridge crew, a small group of humans who had been quietly working for years in the shadows of their own planet, now turned their attention to their consoles. Each one knew what was at stake. The entire fleet, hidden from the Galactic Council's eyes, had been built with the finest technology humanity had ever developed. It was a fleet that could turn the tide of any war, and it had been kept under wraps, deep within the Earth's oceans and hidden military bases. No one, except a select few, knew of its existence. All ships are ready, Lieutenant Singh reported. We've got 12 ships in the first wave, each cloaked and waiting for your command. Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the moment that would send shockwaves through the galaxy. The Galactic Council had mocked Earth for so long, convinced that humanity was nothing but a small, insignificant race. But now, Earth had a hidden weapon they could never have imagined. Initiating first phase, she said, her voice calm but filled with purpose. Let's make sure the Council knows what happens when you underestimate humanity. With a single press of a button, a cascade of lights flashed across the bridge as the fleet came to life. Outside the Vanguard, the other ships in the fleet began to move, slowly at first, like shadows coalescing into something far more formidable. The cloaking technology made them nearly undetectable to any scans, and yet the very presence of these ships would soon send a clear message to the universe. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not helpless. And the Galactic Council would soon learn that they were not invincible. As Sarah stood watching the fleet move into position, memories of the Council's dismissive laughter echoed in her mind. They had thought their weapons were unmatched. They had thought their technology made them invulnerable. But now, Earth's fleet was ready to demonstrate what a species could do when driven by the will to survive. The fleet's plan was simple, yet brilliant. They would strike first, not with brute force, but with precision. The first phase was designed to send a shockwave through the galactic community to create chaos and uncertainty. It wasn't a declaration of full-scale war, yet. Instead, it was a statement. Humanity was here, and they had the power to change the galaxy. Sarah tapped a command on the console in front of her, and the fleet began its journey to the first target, the Council's outer command station. The mission was clear: to disable their communication network and leave them in a state of confusion. The Council's leaders, in their arrogance, had never even considered that Earth could have the capability to execute such a covert attack. Back on Earth, in a hidden bunker deep beneath the surface, The leaders of the human resistance watched the unfolding events on a massive screen. They were the masterminds behind this hidden fleet, the ones who had quietly guided humanity to this moment. They had been waiting for this day, the day when they could finally show the galaxy that humans were more than just survivors. They were conquerors. "This is it," General Adam Cole said, his voice filled with conviction as he turned to the others in the room. "Let's show them who we really are." As Sarah's fleet approached the Council's command station, the tension among the crew grew. The galaxy had never seen anything like this before. Not only did they have a fleet capable of cloaking, but they also had the advantage of surprise. The Council would not know what hit them. "We are ready," Lieutenant Singh said. "The first ship is in position. No scans detected." "Good. Initiate the blackout," Sarah ordered. With that, the fleet activated its advanced jamming systems, cutting off all communication signals to the Galactic Council's command station. The station, once a hub of communication and control, was now silent, its leaders unaware of the impending attack. The ships continued their silent approach. They were ready. Earth's hidden fleet had finally awakened, and the Council, in all its arrogance, had no idea what was about to hit them. The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for centuries, a vast empire of different species bound by power, control, and superiority. They had never once considered Earth as anything more than a minor, unimportant speck in the universe, until now. Back at the Council's command center, panic began to spread like wildfire. The once commanding officers, confident in their advanced technology and superiority, were now scrambling to understand what had just happened. Their vast communication network was down. Systems were failing. Panic echoed through the vast, glittering halls of the command station as the first signs of Earth's fleet became clear. Status report. Commander Telnar, the highest-ranking official at the command station, barked, his voice shaking slightly despite his usual calm demeanor. His golden armor gleamed, but there was a noticeable tremor in his hand as he gripped the console. "We've lost all communications with the outer colonies and the core systems," replied an officer. "There are no incoming transmissions. It's like we've been cut off from the rest of the galaxy." "What do you mean, cut off?" Telnar's voice was rising now, disbelief flashing in his eyes. "Explain yourself." "We don't know, sir," the officer stammered. "It's as if an advanced jamming signal was deployed. Nothing can reach us, and we can't reach anyone." A cold silence fell over the command center as the gravity of the situation set in. The Galactic Council had never feared Earth, never even considered it a threat. But now, something was wrong. This wasn't an ordinary malfunction. This wasn't a technical glitch. This was deliberate. Telnar's mind raced. He had heard the rumors, whispers of a hidden fleet, a fleet that Earth had supposedly built in secret. But those were just myths, weren't they? He had laughed them off, as had most of the Council. The idea that a primitive planet like Earth could amass such a fleet was laughable. But now, as reports continued to pour in, the impossible seemed to be unfolding before his very eyes. "Commander," a panicked officer shouted from across the room. "Sensors have detected multiple ships approaching the outer perimeter. They're cloaked. They're right on top of us, and we can't see them." Telnar turned quickly, his heart racing. The very air seemed to thrum with danger as the realization dawned on him. Earth wasn't just playing with technology they didn't understand. They were outclassing the Galactic Empire at its own game. "Deploy the defenses. Now," Telnar ordered, his voice sharp. "Prepare the fleets for immediate combat. Whatever is out there, we're going to fight it off." But as the order left his lips, another report came in, this time from the outer colonies. There were no longer any transmissions from the outer colonies. It was as though a cloak had descended across the entire galaxy, isolating them completely. "Deploy all remaining fleets," Telnar repeated, but even as the words left his mouth, he felt a sense of hopelessness creeping over him. How could they fight something they couldn't even see? The entire Galactic Council had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price. Meanwhile, the Earth fleet, still hidden within the shadows of space, was on the move. Commander Sarah Jacobs stood at the helm of the Vanguard, a ship that had been designed to inspire fear and awe. Her hand rested on the console, her fingers hovering over the controls. The fleet had already made its first move, a signal that humanity was no longer the prey, but the predator. It had been swift, precise, and terrifyingly efficient. They had disabled the Council's communication networks, leaving the Empire blind and vulnerable. Phase 2. Lieutenant Singh's voice broke through her thoughts, steady as ever. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the view ahead. Phase 2. We've crippled their ability to coordinate. Now we make our presence known. No more hiding. The fleet emerged from the cloaking technology, their forms sharp and intimidating against the backdrop of the stars. There were no more secrets. The Galactic Council would now see humanity's power, feel their wrath, and understand why they had made a terrible mistake. Targeting coordinates locked, Singh reported. We're within range of the Council's flagship. Should we engage? Sarah stood for a moment, letting the weight of the decision settle in. This wasn't just a military operation. It was a message. And that message needed to be clear. Hold fire, Sarah ordered. We'll make our move at the right time. This is more than just a battle. It's a declaration. Back at the Council's command station, Telnar watched as the sensors detected incoming ships. This time, there were no surprises. There were ships, massive, powerful ships, heading straight for the heart of the Council. And they were cloaked. The shields, the weapons, the defenses, they wouldn't be enough. Alert the fleet commanders, Telnar shouted as he began pacing. Ready all weapons. Prepare for battle. This is not a drill. But even as his words filled the air, there was an undeniable truth that hung over the station like a storm cloud. They were not prepared for this. Earth was not supposed to have this kind of power. And now that they had it, the galaxy was about to witness the consequences of underestimating humanity. Sarah's fleet moved like shadows, quiet and menacing. Each ship was poised to strike, but they had no need to rush. The Council was already on edge. The next phase of their plan would be even more devastating. As the fleet drew closer to their targets, Sarah's thoughts turned back to the Galactic Council's arrogance. How foolish they had been. But there was no time for regret. The only thing that mattered now was sending a message that the universe would never forget. Prepare to engage, Sarah commanded once again, her eyes locking with Lieutenant Singh's. This was humanity's moment. This was their time to show the galaxy who they truly were. The Galactic Council was in full retreat. Panic spread like wildfire throughout their ranks. Once mighty, they were now reduced to scrambling survivors, desperately trying to maintain some semblance of control over their vast empire. The pride that had once fueled their conquest of countless worlds now seemed like a fragile illusion, shattered by the unexpected arrival of humanity's hidden fleet. Back in the heart of the Council's command station, Telnar, the commander who had once scoffed at Earth's potential, stood frozen, staring at the massive holoscreens displaying the chaotic mess of information flooding in from every corner of the Empire. Their entire system was on the brink of collapse. Communications were down, fleets were scattered, and the strategic advantage they had once enjoyed was evaporating before their very eyes. Where are the reinforcements? Telnar shouted at the officers around him, his voice trained with panic. The vast command station, once a symbol of the Galactic Council's dominance, now seemed like a fortress on the brink of collapse. We've lost contact with half of the fleet, sir, one officer cried, his face pale. There's no word from the outer colonies. We're blind. Commander, we can't see what's coming. Telnar's chest tightened. He had underestimated humanity. How could he have been so foolish? The human fleet had remained hidden for so long, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now, they were everywhere. The Galactic Council's once vast network of surveillance systems was useless, completely blindsided by Earth's advanced stealth technology. "We need to regroup," Telnar muttered, trying to steady himself. "We need to re-establish contact with the fleet. We can't let them take control of the entire sector." But even as he spoke, the situation grew bleaker. The enemy ships, once cloaked and invisible, were now revealing themselves. Massive warships emerging from the shadows of space, moving towards the heart of the Galactic Empire. Humanity's hidden fleet had arrived, and they were making no attempt to hide their intent. The humans had already neutralized the Council's communication networks, isolating the command center, and now they were preparing for the final strike. Meanwhile, aboard the Vanguard, Commander Sarah Jacobs stood at the center of the bridge, her eyes locked onto the holographic map that displayed the Galactic Council's remaining forces. The time for subtlety was over. It was time to finish what they had started. "Lieutenant Singh, prepare the fleet for the next phase," Sarah ordered, her voice calm but resolute. "We've crippled their defenses. Now we hit them where it hurts." Lieutenant Singh nodded, his face set in grim determination. "Understood, Commander. The ships are in position. We're ready to make the jump to the Council's capital. All we need is the word." Sarah's fingers hovered over the communication console. The Galactic Council had laughed at Earth's potential, mocked their progress, and underestimated the humans' ability to learn, adapt, and innovate. But the time for mockery was over. Now, humanity was going to show them just how wrong they had been. She pressed a button, activating a fleet-wide communication link. Her voice rang out across the entire force, steady and unwavering. "Fleet, this is Commander Sarah Jacobs. The time for subtlety is past. We are not just fighting for survival. We are fighting to prove a point to the Galactic Empire. They thought we were weak. They thought we were insignificant. But now, they will know who we are." A cheer erupted from the crew as the message spread throughout the ships. The fleet was ready. "We will strike hard and fast," Sarah continued. "Our mission is simple: destroy their command center and cripple their fleet. They have no idea what's coming. Let's make sure they never forget the day they underestimated humanity." On the command station of the Galactic Council, Telnar's eyes darted across the information screens, watching helplessly as the incoming enemy fleet drew closer. The ships were coming for them, and this time, there was no hiding. "Prepare for battle," Telnar shouted, but even his orders seemed hollow. How could they prepare for something like this? How could they stop an enemy they couldn't even see? The technology they had once relied on, systems capable of spotting incoming threats from light years away, was useless against Earth's technology. Every move they made was countered by an unseen force. "Activate the planetary shields," Telnar cried, his voice rising. "We need to protect the capital at all costs." But the words were barely out of his mouth when the first wave of Earth's fleet descended upon them. Massive warships, once hidden in the depths of space, now emerged from the shadows like vengeful gods. Their weapons powered up, and the first volley of energy blasts lit up the dark void of space, striking the Council's defensive systems. The attack was swift and overwhelming. The shields around the capital failed almost instantly, and the first wave of enemy ships entered the atmosphere, sending shockwaves across the galaxy. Telnar's worst nightmare was coming true. Humanity had made its move, and there was no going back. As the human fleet cut through the heart of the Galactic Empire, Sarah stood at the helm of the Vanguard, watching as the capital came into view. It was time to end this. "Launch all remaining fighters," she ordered. "We hit them with everything we have. Let's finish this." The final battle had begun, and there was no turning back. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, and now the galaxy would feel the full force of their fury. The Galactic Council's reign was coming to an end, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The galactic battlefield was a chaotic mess of flashing lights, energy pulses, and disintegrating ships. As humanity's fleet tore through the heart of the Galactic Council's forces, a sense of urgency gripped the Empire's leaders. The once proud and unassailable Galactic Empire was now crumbling under the weight of its arrogance. The shock of humanity's stealth fleet and the relentless assault it brought had left them scrambling for answers, but it was too late. Telnar, still in command of the Galactic Council's last stand, gripped the armrests of his command chair tightly, his knuckles white. The map of the galaxy, once an image of imperial dominance, now displayed the steady retreat of every remaining galactic fleet. His eyes darted from one screen to another, trying to find a sliver of hope, but there was nothing. Humanity's fleet was everywhere, and they were not relenting. "They're relentless," Telnar muttered under his breath, his voice betraying a hint of disbelief. How did they learn to fight like this? His officers, equally stunned, could only stare at the failing systems. Their communication channels were blocked, their reinforcement fleets cut off. In a matter of hours, the Galactic Council had lost control of more territory than they had in centuries. Every battle had been a blow to their ego, their power, their influence. Now, the stars they once ruled seemed to be slipping away from their grasp. "We can't hold them off much longer," one of the officers said, looking over his terminal in horror. "Their ships, they're unlike anything we've ever seen." Telnar swallowed hard. He could see the truth in the officer's words. These ships, sleek, powerful, and strategically genius, were designed not only to overpower but to overwhelm. The Galactic Fleet wasn't just fighting a superior force. They were fighting a force that had learned from every mistake they had ever made. Humanity was unpredictable. They were clever, and they were winning. Meanwhile, aboard the Vanguard, Commander Sarah Jacobs was coordinating the final push. Her fleet had become an unstoppable juggernaut, and with every passing minute, the Galactic Empire's defenses seemed to fall apart more swiftly. But Sarah knew that this wasn't over yet. The Council still held significant strength in the capital, and Telnar, their last hope, would stop at nothing to try to hold on to his power. "Commander, their shield generators are down," Lieutenant Singh reported, eyes wide with determination. "We can break through their final defenses." Sarah's eyes flicked to the central screen, where the distant capital of the Galactic Empire loomed in all its intimidating glory. It was surrounded by the last remnants of the enemy fleet, but it was clear the tide had turned. Their once imposing defenses were no longer a match for humanity's advanced technology. The last battle was about to unfold. "We've come this far," Sarah said, her voice filled with the calm assurance of someone who had seen the worst and emerged victorious. "We finish it now." "Yes, Commander," Singh acknowledged as the entire fleet prepared for the final assault. As Sarah watched the forces under her command make their final approach, memories of the long, difficult road to this moment flooded her mind. She remembered the ridicule, the mockery from the Galactic Council, the doubt they had cast upon humanity's potential. And now, in this final moment, she could taste the victory they had earned. On the other side of the galaxy, the Galactic Council was in complete disarray. Their forces had been routed, their command stations taken, and their leaders were scrambling to salvage anything they could. The last vestiges of their once feared empire were evaporating before their eyes. And all because of Earth. All because of humanity's ability to rise to the challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. In the throne room of the Galactic Council's capital, Telnar stood at the edge of a precipice. The walls, once adorned with symbols of imperial power, now seemed hollow and cold. His advisors and officers were huddled around, trying to coordinate their final stand. But Telnar could feel the weight of inevitability pressing in on him. "The humans are at the gates," an officer said in a tremulous voice. "They're already inside the atmosphere. Our shields are down. This is it. We can't stop them." Telnar's hand shook as he gripped his command console, his mind racing for solutions that no longer existed. This had been his empire, the one he had devoted his life to, the one he had promised to protect. Now it was falling apart. The human fleet, once the subject of ridicule, had proven far too formidable to defeat. Their stealth technology, their tactics, and their sheer will to win had broken the Galactic Empire, piece by piece. "We can't lose," Telnar whispered, more to himself than anyone else. But his words were hollow. The battle was over. On the Vanguard, Sarah watched as the final wave of the enemy fleet disintegrated. The Galactic Empire's forces were now reduced to nothing. Their capital was in ruins, the Council was shattered, and their arrogance, which had once been their greatest strength, had led to their undoing. A cheer erupted on the bridge of the Vanguard, as the last remnants of the Galactic Empire's resistance crumbled. The victory had been hard won, but humanity had proved its worth. The stars were no longer the exclusive domain of the Galactic Council. They belonged to the humans now. "We did it," Lieutenant Singh said, a grin spreading across his face. "The Empire is finished." Sarah nodded, her gaze still fixed on the devastated capital. "This is just the beginning. The galaxy will never forget the day they underestimated humanity." As the Vanguard moved toward the remains of the Galactic Council's capital, Sarah knew that Earth's fleet had not just conquered the stars. They had reshaped the future of the entire galaxy. And with that victory, humanity had sent a message loud and clear to every corner of the galaxy. Never underestimate the human spirit. The stars flickered in the darkness, silent witnesses to the collapse of an empire that had ruled for centuries. The remnants of the Galactic Empire, once a symbol of supreme power, now lay in ruins. The vast and complex structures of the Empire's military might were reduced to smoldering wreckage, drifting aimlessly in space. The pride of the Empire had been humbled, defeated by a force they never saw coming, humanity. On the Vanguard, the flagship of Earth's fleet, Commander Sarah Jacobs stood at the command station, her eyes glued to the screens in front of her. The last battle had been nothing short of a triumph, but she knew the true challenge had only just begun. With the fall of the Galactic Empire, the galaxy would need to come to terms with a power shift, one that had been unthinkable just a few short years ago. "Commander, their communications are down," Lieutenant Singh reported. "We've taken control of their primary command network. It's all over." Sarah nodded, her face a mask of determination. It's not just about victory. It's about sending a message that the galaxy will remember. But the end of one empire often meant the rise of others. The remaining leaders of the Galactic Council had escaped into the farthest reaches of the galaxy, taking refuge in remote colonies. They would regroup, lick their wounds, and plan. But the real question was, could they ever truly recover from this? Would the galaxy ever forget the humiliation of their defeat? As Sarah pondered this, a loud beep from the communications panel interrupted her thoughts. She turned, her gaze sharp as she saw an incoming transmission from Earth. The voice on the other end was filled with emotion and relief. "Commander Jacobs, Earth is proud. The Galactic Empire is no more, and humanity has shown its strength. But now we need to plan for what comes next. What do we do now that the Empire is gone?" Sarah exhaled slowly, allowing the weight of the question to settle in. The victory had been earned with blood and sweat, but the galaxy was vast, and the road ahead was uncertain. The remnants of the Galactic Empire might be gone, but other powers, other forces, would rise to take their place. And the lesson that had been learned from this victory, the lesson that had brought humanity to this point, was that Earth was not to be underestimated. "We rebuild," Sarah replied firmly, her eyes filled with resolve. "We claim what is ours, not through conquest, but through unity. We have won this battle, but the war for the galaxy's future is far from over." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, in the shattered remains of the Galactic Empire's capital, the last of the Imperial leaders sat in their private chambers, their faces grave. The defeat was total, and their power was shattered. The last remnants of their fleet had been obliterated. Their great city was in ruins. It was over. "We never saw it coming," Telnar, the once proud general of the galactic forces, said quietly, his voice hoarse with disbelief. "The humans, they didn't fight like any species we've encountered. They didn't fight for power, they fought for survival. And they were willing to do whatever it took to win. One of his fellow commanders nodded, looking at the burning remains of the capital city through the shattered windows. It was the stealth fleet that did it. No one even knew they were there until it was too late. They hit us from every angle, and we had no way of responding. We underestimated them. Telner slammed his fist on the table. We weren't just fighting against ships and weapons. We were fighting against an entire species that refused to die. We made a grave mistake. The other commanders fell silent. The truth was undeniable. The Galactic Empire had been destroyed, not just by superior technology, but by the unyielding will of humanity. It was that same drive, that same determination, that had propelled Earth's fleet into the heart of the Empire, breaking through its defenses like a hot knife through butter. But as the Imperial leaders huddled in their last refuge, there was one thing they could not deny. The power of humanity was not to be ignored. And though they had lost the war, they understood now that they would never be able to defeat Earth in the same way they had defeated so many others. Humanity had risen from nothing and had carved its name into the stars. Back aboard the Vanguard, Sarah stood once more at the helm, looking out into the vastness of space. The battle was over, but the galaxy still teemed with untold dangers. She knew this victory was just the beginning. The fall of the Galactic Empire was only the first step in humanity's long journey to claim its rightful place among the stars. "Lieutenant Singh," Sarah said, her voice steady, "prepare the fleet. We have a galaxy to shape." "Yes, Commander," Singh replied, his voice filled with excitement and anticipation. As the Vanguard surged forward, leaving behind the remnants of the fallen empire, Sarah's mind raced. There would be challenges ahead, new enemies to face and alliances to form. But humanity had proven one undeniable truth. No one could stand in their way. The galaxy was now humanity's to explore, to protect, and to conquer. And the Galactic Council, having laughed at Earth just a short time ago, would never forget the day they learned not to underestimate humanity's might. The vast expanse of the galaxy stretched out before Sarah Jacobs, the endless stars offering no answers, only possibilities. As the Vanguard cut through the void, Sarah couldn't shake the weight of the victory she had just claimed. The Galactic Empire had fallen, and yet the true battle had only just begun. In the wake of their humiliation, the remnants of the Galactic Empire, scattered across the farthest reaches of space, had gone silent. No messages, no resistance. It was as though the galaxy itself was holding its breath, waiting for what humanity would do next. The victory had shattered their power, but it had also sent ripples through the galaxy, ripples that would be felt for generations to come. "Commander, we've received multiple transmissions from various galactic factions," Lieutenant Singh reported, his voice calm but with an undertone of concern. "It seems the rest of the galaxy is watching us." Sarah stood up from the command chair and approached the view screen. On it, a map of the galaxy blinked in front of her, showing the delicate balance of power. Earth's influence was growing, but there were still pockets of resistance, remnants of empires that had not yet realized the new order. "We've earned their attention," Sarah said quietly, her voice steady, "and it's time to show them what humanity is capable of." Despite the overwhelming sense of victory, Sarah knew there was more work to be done. The galaxy was vast, with ancient empires, lost civilizations, and dangerous species lurking in its corners. The fall of the Galactic Empire had shifted the balance of power, but it had also created a power vacuum. And where there was a vacuum, there would always be someone ready to fill it. "Commander," Singh spoke again, interrupting Sarah's thoughts, "we've detected a large fleet gathering near the outskirts of the Andromeda system. It looks like a coalition of surviving Imperial factions is making a stand." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "So they think they can challenge us, even now?" Singh nodded. "They fortify themselves in a remote region of space. It's clear they want to rebuild, but they're not ready for another war. This could be their last attempt to reclaim their former glory." A small smile tugged at the corner of Sarah's lips. They're making a mistake. They have no idea what humanity is capable of. The Vanguard surged forward, its engines roaring to life, cutting through the emptiness of space at an astonishing speed. Sarah had no intention of letting the remnants of the Galactic Empire regroup. They had underestimated humanity before, but this time, she was determined to show them that Earth's rise was not just a fluke. It was a force that could never be stopped. The fleet arrived in the Andromeda system, where a vast coalition of Imperial warships lay in wait. They were armed to the teeth, ready to fight and reclaim what they had lost. But what they didn't expect was the overwhelming force of humanity's fleet, which had been growing ever stronger. Sarah Jacobs stood at the command station of the Vanguard, watching as the two fleets moved toward each other. The tension was thick, palpable in the cold silence of space. It was a standoff unlike any the galaxy had seen before. The Imperial commanders, once so confident in their dominance, now found themselves on the defensive. They had underestimated the ingenuity, the determination, and the sheer audacity of humanity. Earth's fleet was not just technologically advanced. It was driven by a collective will to survive and to thrive. All hands, prepare for battle. Sarah's voice rang out over the intercom, sharp and commanding. Today, we finish what we started. The clash was inevitable. As the first shots were fired, Sarah watched as humanity's fleet, led by the Vanguard, cut through the enemy lines. The Imperial warships, once the pride of a galaxy-spanning empire, were no match for Earth's relentless advance. They fought with the desperation of a species that had everything to lose, but it was clear that the battle was already over. The Empire's forces were crumbling. Despite their strength, the Imperial fleet could not overcome the sheer will of humanity. Earth's fleet moved with precision, outflanking and outmaneuvering the enemy at every turn. The battle raged for hours, but with every passing minute, the Galactic Empire's remnants were being pushed back further into the void of space. "Commander, we've secured the last of their ships," Lieutenant Singh reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "They're retreating. It's over." Sarah watched as the remaining Imperial ships surrendered or fulled into deep space, their once formidable fleet now nothing more than a collection of defeated remnants. Humanity had proven that it was not only capable of standing up to the galaxy's most powerful forces, but that it could dominate the stars. "Prepare the fleet for follow-up operations," Sarah ordered. "We take the galaxy's future into our own hands. This victory is just the beginning." As the Vanguard and the rest of humanity's fleet regrouped, Sarah allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. The galaxy would never be the same again. Earth had been underestimated, mocked, and thought weak by the powerful galactic empires, but it had emerged victorious. Humanity had conquered the stars, not through brute force, but through unity, innovation, and sheer willpower. The fall of the Galactic Empire had been just the first step. Now, humanity stood at the precipice of something far greater, a future where they were not just participants in the galaxy but its rulers. And as Sarah Jacobs gazed out at the stars, she knew one thing for certain. No one would ever dare to underestimate humanity again. The galaxy had learned a painful lesson. Earth was no longer the underdog. It was the new power in the galaxy. The rise of humanity had only just begun. The Galactic Empire had always seen itself as the ruler of the stars, stretching across countless systems, with fleets powerful enough to crush any rebellion. The Empire's reach was vast, and its pride even vaster. In their eyes, no force could challenge their authority, not even Earth. The humans were seen as primitive, their technology outdated, their military laughable. After all, how could a planet that barely knew space travel stand against the might of an empire that had conquered half the galaxy? The Empire's generals would often mock Earth in their private meetings, calling it a backwater world, barely worth a second glance. They laughed at the idea of Earth's defenses, convinced that no one on such a small, insignificant planet could pose a threat to their mighty fleet. To them, Earth was a curiosity, perhaps interesting in the sense that a child's toys were interesting, but nothing more. But the Empire's arrogance would soon come back to haunt them. On the edge of the galaxy, a routine scout mission was underway. A sleek, silent ship moved swiftly through space, its sensors scanning Earth's sector. The pilot, a seasoned officer from the Imperial Navy, leaned back in his seat, glancing at the blueprints of Earth's system displayed on his console. He had done hundreds of such missions before, flying over the same planets, gathering intelligence on systems too weak to resist the Empire's might. But today, something felt different. There was a strange energy in the air, a subtle sense of foreboding that he couldn't quite explain. Earth, the pilot muttered with a smirk. What could they possibly be hiding? He pressed a button, activating the ship's cloaking device, and drifted closer to the planet. His mission was simple: gather data and report back. The Empire's fleet was already millions of light-years away, enjoying their superiority, too far to care about a small mission like his. But as the pilot approached Earth's orbit, things began to take an unusual turn. His ship's sensors started to pick up odd readings, energy surges that didn't match anything in the standard database. At first, he thought it was a glitch. After all, Earth's technology was far behind the Empire's. There couldn't possibly be anything of importance here. But as he examined the data, his eyes widened in disbelief. The energy signatures were far more advanced than anything Earth should be capable of. Before he could investigate further, a blinding flash of light exploded in front of his ship. The scout's controls went haywire as the ship's shields flickered on and off. "What the hell?" the pilot shouted, trying to regain control of the ship. His heart raced as he struggled to comprehend what was happening. This wasn't supposed to happen. Earth was supposed to be weak. Another pulse of energy hit his ship, this time with greater force. The pilot's panic grew as his ship was thrown off course, unable to escape the storm of strange energy. The readings were no longer just unusual. They were impossible. Whatever Earth was hiding, it was far beyond the pilot's understanding. His heart pounded in his chest as he frantically attempted to send a distress signal back to the fleet, but his communications were jammed, cut off by a force he could neither see nor understand. "What's going on?" he shouted into the comms, but the words were lost to static. Then, with no warning, a massive shockwave of energy surged outward from Earth, tearing through space. It wasn't just a pulse. It was a force so powerful it rattled the very fabric of space itself. The pilot's ship was powerless against it, his systems overloaded and his instruments malfunctioning. The scout ship's hull groaned under the pressure, and before he could even react, everything went black. Back on the Empire's flagship, Admiral Vorn watched the transmission from the scout ship flicker out, his brow furrowed in confusion. There had been no warning of an enemy attack. Earth had never been considered a threat, so why had they lost contact with the scout? A few moments later, a technician rushed into the control room, looking as though she had seen a ghost. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the scout ship," she reported, her voice trembling. Vorn's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, lost contact?" "We tried to reach them, but there's nothing. No communication, no signal, no sign of the ship." The Admiral slammed his fist down on the console, his patience wearing thin. "Send another scout. Earth is nothing but a primitive planet. There's no way they could." But before he could finish, the ship's alarms began to blare. His eyes widened as the lights around him flickered, and the main viewport displayed an unexpected sight. Hundreds of ships, far larger and more advanced than anything Earth had ever been known to possess, emerging from behind the planet itself. Vorn's jaw dropped. What in the name of the Empire? The Galactic Empire, once so sure of its dominance, was now facing a situation they could never have predicted. Earth, the planet they had laughed at for so long, had just shown the Empire what it was truly capable of. And now, with the Empire's scout ship lost and their fleet in disarray, they were about to learn the hard way that Earth was not a planet to be underestimated. As Earth's fleet prepared to reveal itself fully, Vorn knew one thing for certain. The Empire had just made a huge mistake. The unseen power awakens. The Galactic Empire's arrogance was a well-known trait, but it had never been more dangerous than it was in the aftermath of the disaster that befell their scout ship. Admiral Vorn stood before his command center, staring out of the massive viewport as the fleet made its way toward Earth's orbit. The prideful laughter he had once heard echoing through the halls of the Imperial High Command now felt like a distant memory, one overshadowed by the looming threat that hung over them. "Admiral, we're approaching Earth's system," the tactical officer said, breaking the tense silence. Vorn's hands clenched at his sides, his mind racing. Earth had always been a curiosity to the Empire, a planet of little significance that posed no real threat to their might. They had never been taken seriously, their primitive technology and outdated defenses easily ignored by the Empire's finest. But that arrogance had just cost them dearly. The scout ship, which was supposed to be a simple reconnaissance mission, had vanished without a trace. Not even the most advanced technology in the Empire could explain what had happened. The reports had been vague, nothing but fragments of strange energy readings and chaotic data streams. But one thing was clear: Earth had something hidden, something the Empire had completely underestimated. Vorn's voice was cold as he gave the order, "Prepare the fleet for deployment. I want the full might of the Empire at Earth's doorstep. Show them what happens when they provoke us." But as the fleet advanced, something strange began to unfold. At first, it was subtle, almost unnoticeable. The sensors aboard the flagship began picking up strange readings from the planet's atmosphere. Small fluctuations, unusual energy signatures. The Empire's advanced technology couldn't make sense of it, and that made Vorn uneasy. "Admiral, we're getting a strange signal from the planet," the communications officer reported, her voice tight with anxiety. It's coming from Earth itself." Vorn narrowed his eyes, his instincts on high alert. "What kind of signal?" "It's unlike anything we've seen before," she replied. "It's not even using the usual frequencies. It's almost as if it's designed to avoid detection." The Admiral took a deep breath, his mind racing. Earth had always been beneath the Empire's radar, a planet with no real power. But now, they were facing something unknown, something capable of hiding right under the Empire's nose. He wasn't sure what kind of game the humans were playing, but one thing was clear: Earth was no longer the insignificant world they had once thought it was. A sudden, sharp beeping interrupted his thoughts. The tactical officer looked up, wide-eyed. "Admiral, the signal is escalating. It's growing stronger." "What do you mean, stronger?" Vorn asked, his tone rising in frustration. "I don't know, sir," the officer replied, her hands flying across the controls as she tried to get a better reading. "The energy signatures, whatever this is, are unlike anything we've seen. And they're moving toward us." Before anyone could react, the alarms began to blare, loud and deafening. The entire command center went into chaos as the fleet's instruments went haywire. The once imposing Imperial ships, sleek and powerful, now felt vulnerable, exposed to a force they couldn't comprehend. "Full shields. Now," Vorn shouted, his heart pounding in his chest. But even as he gave the order, the shields flickered, barely managing to stabilize. And then, without warning, the shockwave hit. A pulse of energy unlike anything the Empire had ever seen slammed into the fleet, rattling the ships and sending shockwaves through the very fabric of space. The force was so intense that it temporarily disabled the flagship's communication systems, leaving the Admiral and his crew in stunned silence. The shockwave had not only caught them off guard, but had overwhelmed their best defenses in a matter of seconds. "Report," Vorn demanded, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "We've lost contact with the forward fleet," the tactical officer cried, her voice shaking. "And we've detected a fleet emerging from the planet." Vorn's eyes went wide as the realization hit him. Earth had just done something the Empire thought impossible. It had concealed an entire fleet right under their noses. Ships, massive, advanced, and highly formidable, were now rising from Earth's atmosphere, decloaking as if they had been waiting for this very moment. The shock was overwhelming, like the sudden punch of a powerful storm. The Admiral's mind raced as he tried to piece together what was happening. There was no way the humans could have built such a fleet. They didn't have the resources. They didn't have the technology. Or did they? As the mysterious fleet emerged, Vorn's thoughts turned to the scout ship. Had it been a trap? Had Earth been preparing for this moment all along, waiting for the Empire to underestimate them, so they could strike back? A new dread settled over the Admiral as he looked at the screens in front of him. The humans were not weak. They were not helpless. And now they had the power to destroy an empire that had thought itself invincible. "Prepare for battle," Vorn ordered, his voice grim. But deep down, he knew that this was a battle the Empire was not ready for. The time for underestimating Earth had ended. What lay ahead was a war the Empire was ill-prepared for, and they were about to learn the hard way that Earth was not a planet to be taken lightly. Earth's counterattack. The shockwave from Earth had left the Galactic Empire's fleet stunned, but it was far from the end of their ordeal. The mysterious energy pulse had not only crippled their ships, but it had also marked the beginning of a nightmare the Empire was not prepared for. As the disabled flagship struggled to regain communication, Admiral Vorn could feel the weight of their situation pressing down on him. What had just happened was a clear message, one that reverberated across the entire fleet. The Empire had always considered Earth a backwater planet, a place where little of value existed beyond its meager resources. But in the span of a few minutes, everything had changed. What had once seemed like a primitive world now revealed itself to be a force to be reckoned with. Vorn's mind raced as he tried to process the implications. The Earth fleet that had emerged from the planet's atmosphere was nothing short of astonishing. Ships vast in size, and with technology far beyond what the Empire had expected, began positioning themselves in formation, ready for a confrontation. "We need to regroup," Vorn said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "Deploy the remaining fleet and prepare for immediate defense. Whatever this is, it's not going to be a simple fight." The tactical officer, still shaking from the earlier shockwave, scrambled to carry out his orders. "Admiral, we've identified multiple ships rising from Earth's atmosphere. They're massive. Some of them are even larger than our flagship. The readings, they're off the charts." "Impossible," Vorn muttered under his breath. Earth could never have constructed ships of this size and power in such a short time. He had spent years studying the strategic weaknesses of the galaxy's most vulnerable planets, and Earth had always been at the bottom of his list. It was a world of survivors, but never had it shown any sign of having such advanced technology. What was going on? Had the humans been hiding their true capabilities all along? On the command bridge of the flagship, tension hung in the air as officers and crew members scrambled to adjust their systems. The Admiral gripped the edge of his console, his eyes never leaving the planet below. It wasn't just their technology that was shocking. It was their readiness. It was as if Earth had been preparing for this moment for years. "Sir, we have multiple incoming transmissions from the Earth fleet," the communications officer reported, her voice crackling with static. "It appears they're sending us a message. It's encoded, but we're decrypting it now." Vorn nodded grimly. "Put it through." A low hum filled the bridge as the encrypted message was decoded. The words that followed were short, but their impact was immediate and chilling. "Run while you still can. This is your only warning." The message was from Earth, a direct communication from their fleet. The arrogance in the words sent a shiver through Vorn's spine. The Empire had underestimated Earth. This was clear now, and the consequences of their oversight were already becoming evident. "We are receiving a large signal from their fleet." "Admiral," the officer continued, her face pale, "it seems like they're preparing to engage us." "Don't wait for them to strike first," Vorn ordered. "Engage with everything we have. Show them that the Empire does not fear threats. He gave the command, and within moments, the Imperial fleet began firing its weapons at the Earth ships, launching powerful volleys of energy bolts at the encroaching fleet. But to his surprise, the humans did not retaliate immediately. Instead, they merely maneuvered into position, each ship seemingly perfectly coordinated, as if they had anticipated the Empire's every move. "Admiral," the communications officer said with a tone of disbelief, "the humans are using energy shields we've never seen before. Our weapons are having little to no effect on them." Vorn's eyes narrowed. How was this possible? Even the most advanced shield technology in the Empire was no match for their weapons, and yet Earth's fleet was shrugging off the attacks as if they were nothing more than an inconvenience. Then, without warning, the Earth fleet struck. Massive energy beams fired from the surface of Earth, slicing through space at impossible speeds. The beams hit the Imperial ships with devastating accuracy, puncturing shields and tearing through hulls. The first volley obliterated the forward fleet in a series of violent explosions. Ships disintegrated in the blink of an eye, and debris scattered across the battlefield. Vorn's heart sank as he watched the destruction unfold. What is this? The Earth fleet, though outnumbered, moved with terrifying precision. Their ships were not only technologically superior, but seemed to be operating with an unspoken unity that the Empire had never encountered before. This was no mere planetary defense force. This was an organized, powerful military that had been preparing for something much larger than any of them had imagined. "Admiral, we've lost communication with the forward units," the tactical officer shouted. "They're being overwhelmed. We need to retreat." But retreat was not an option. The Empire had never known defeat at the hands of a planet so far beneath their notice. The thought of running from a world like Earth was unimaginable. "We will not retreat," Vorn barked, gripping his console tighter. "Prepare all available defenses and activate the countermeasures. We're not done yet." But deep down, he knew the truth. Earth had already won the first round. The Empire was facing an enemy unlike anything it had ever seen, and the outcome of this war was still uncertain. The humans were no longer the prey. They had become the hunters, and they were making it clear that no one, not even the mightiest empire in the galaxy, would escape their wrath. The Empire's desperation. The Galactic Empire had long been the dominant force in the galaxy. Its fleet had crushed countless enemies, its power unmatched. But now, for the first time in its history, the Empire faced a force that refused to bow. Earth, once dismissed as a weak, insignificant planet, had struck back with a ferocity that shook the Empire to its core. On board the Imperial flagship, Admiral Vorn paced furiously, his mind racing as he tried to process the unthinkable. The Earth fleet was unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. Their ships were not just powerful. They were relentless, moving with a coordination and efficiency that belied their supposed technological backwardness. "How are they doing this?" Vorn muttered, his fingers brushing the edge of the command table. "We've seen nothing like this in all our years of conquest. How could they have hidden this level of technology?" His chief tactician, Captain Lyra, stood beside him, equally shaken. "Admiral, we've lost over half of our forward fleet. The Earth ships are using some kind of cloaking technology. Our sensors can't track them when they move into position." Vorn's face hardened. "Cloaking? Impossible. No species in the galaxy has perfected it to this degree." He turned toward the view screen, where Earth's fleet was positioning itself, still hovering in space. Their ships were massive, each one a formidable weapon. The Empire's fleet, once the most advanced in the galaxy, now seemed like nothing more than a collection of outdated machines. The Earth ships had been designed for one thing: survival. And now, they were proving that they had been preparing for a battle the Empire never saw coming. "Admiral, they've launched another wave of attacks," one of the communications officers reported. "Energy beams are locking onto our ships. We're losing shields at an alarming rate. The sound of explosions echoed through the ship as another volley of energy beams struck the Imperial fleet. The shields of several ships collapsed under the onslaught, and the ships were torn apart in a matter of seconds. Damn it! Vorn slammed his fist into the console. I want every ship to fall back immediately. We need to regroup and reassess our strategy. But even as he gave the order, he knew it might be too late. The humans had already proven their strength, and they weren't going to stop until the Empire was brought to its knees. On the command deck, the tension was palpable. Crew members scrambled to execute the retreat orders, but there was no guarantee that the Empire's fleet could escape the Earth ships. Every move they made was being watched, and every attack was met with brutal efficiency. "We can't outrun them," Captain Lyra said, her voice low. "These ships, they move faster than we can react. And their weapons, they're devastating. We'll be wiped out before we even have a chance to retreat." Vorn's eyes flicked to the view screen again, where the Earth fleet was closing in. They had no intention of letting the Empire regroup. This was no ordinary skirmish. It was a battle for survival, and the Empire had underestimated the stakes. "We've underestimated them." "Vorn," Lyra said, her tone turning grim. "These humans are unlike any species we've encountered before. They're not fighting for resources. They're fighting for their lives." "I know that," Vorn snapped. He rubbed his temples, trying to think. "But we can't retreat. If we pull back now, they'll hunt us down. They've already shown they're not afraid to strike first. We have to show them what the Empire is capable of." He turned to his second in command. "Set course for Earth. We're going to launch a counterattack, one that they won't forget." The crew hesitated, exchanging nervous glances. But there was no choice. If the Empire did not retaliate, they risked losing everything. They would either crush Earth or face complete annihilation. As the fleet moved toward Earth, a chilling realization set in for Admiral Vorn. No matter how many ships they sent, no matter how much firepower they deployed, Earth's fleet had already demonstrated that they were not the weaklings the Empire had assumed. The humans had something else, something the Empire had never encountered before. As the first wave of Imperial ships readied for battle, Vorn couldn't help but wonder if it was too late. Earth's counterattack had been devastating, and the humans were growing bolder with each passing moment. The Empire had made a fatal mistake by underestimating them, and now they were about to pay the price. But Earth wasn't finished yet. As the Imperial ships advanced, the Earth fleet remained silent, waiting, watching, and preparing for the inevitable clash. And when the battle finally erupted, it would change everything. For the first time in its long and storied history, the Galactic Empire was facing a true fight for survival. The humans had proven they would stop at nothing to defend their planet, and the Empire would either have to adapt or be destroyed. The future of the galaxy rested in the hands of those who had once been considered weak. Now, they were the ones who would decide the fate of the universe. The clash of titans. The battle had begun. It was a struggle that would decide the fate of the galaxy, and every move counted. On the command deck of the Imperial flagship, Admiral Vorn stood at the center, eyes fixed on the chaos unfolding across the view screen. The Earth fleet, still cloaked, had begun their strike, emerging from the shadows like silent predators hunting their prey. A wave of energy beams ripped through the darkness of space, slamming into the leading Imperial ships. Their shields flickered and failed, and explosions rippled through their hulls. The Imperial fleet, despite its immense power and technological might, had not been prepared for the sheer brutality of Earth's counterattack. "Admiral, their firepower is overwhelming," one of Vorn's officers shouted, his voice filled with panic. "We're losing ships at an alarming rate. We can't hold them off much longer." Vorn clenched his jaw, his mind racing for a solution. He had never anticipated this level of resistance. The Empire's strength, once unquestioned, was now being tested in the most brutal way. Earth's fleet moved with deadly precision, their attacks coordinated and relentless. From the vantage point of the Earth fleet, The situation was equally tense. Captain Iris, the leader of Earth's secret fleet, watched the battle unfold with cold determination. Every ship, every maneuver was critical. Earth had been preparing for this moment for years. The Empire had underestimated them, mocked them, and now they were paying the price. "Captain, their fleet is bigger than we anticipated," Lieutenant Hawkins reported, his voice steady but tense. "We're taking heavy losses. They're stronger than we thought." Iris nodded. She had known from the beginning that the Empire wouldn't go down easily. But Earth's fleet had one advantage that the Empire didn't: sheer willpower. These ships weren't just tools of war. They were symbols of survival, of a planet's refusal to be erased from the universe. And no matter the cost, Earth would fight to the last ship. "We can't let them regroup," Iris said, her voice firm. "Keep pressing forward. Every attack counts." The Earth fleet moved like a storm, surging forward with relentless force. Their ships darted in and out of the Imperial formation, striking with pinpoint accuracy. Even though the Imperial fleet was larger and more heavily armed, they were at a disadvantage. The humans knew their home planet's survival was at stake, and that made them more dangerous than any of the Empire's enemies. Back on the Imperial flagship, Vorn was growing desperate. The humans were everywhere. Their ships materialized from the darkness, hit hard, and then vanished, only to strike again from another direction. It was impossible to predict their movements, and their attacks were devastating. "Captain Lyra, what's our status?" Vorn demanded, his voice harsh. "How many ships do we have left?" Lyra's face was grim. "We've lost nearly 2/3 of our fleet, Admiral. Our remaining ships are damaged, and our communications are failing. We need reinforcements, or we'll be destroyed." Vorn's heart pounded in his chest. This was not how the Empire had planned this. They were supposed to crush Earth easily, but now they were on the verge of complete annihilation. He couldn't let that happen, not after all the years of conquest and dominance. The Empire had to prevail, no matter the cost. "Reinforcements are on the way," Vorn said, his voice low and filled with grim resolve. "We'll fight to the end." But even as he spoke, Vorn couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The Empire's usual tactics weren't working. The humans weren't just defending their planet. They were fighting with everything they had, and they weren't afraid to die for it. For the first time, the Empire was facing an enemy that wasn't just fighting for power or conquest, but for their very survival. Meanwhile, Iris's heart raced as she surveyed the damage to her fleet. The Empire's reinforcements were already on the way, and she knew that they needed to act fast. Every second counted. Earth's fleet might be small, but they were quick, and they had something that the Empire's forces didn't: the advantage of surprise. "We need to finish this now," Iris said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "We have one shot at this. If we don't cripple their fleet now, we'll lose everything." Her command crew worked quickly, adjusting their strategy to focus on the Imperial flagship. Taking down the command ship would disrupt the Empire's coordination and give Earth's fleet the upper hand. It was a risky move, but it was their only option. "Target the flagship," Iris ordered, her eyes fixed on the screen. "Full power to the forward cannons. We have to make this count." The Earth ships adjusted their course and began a coordinated assault on the Imperial flagship. They moved quickly, their weapons firing with deadly precision. The Empire's flagship, once thought invulnerable, now found itself under siege. Massive blasts slammed into its hull, sending shockwaves through the ship. Vorn could feel the tremors beneath his feet as his ship was rocked by the onslaught. "Captain, we can't withstand this much longer," one of Vorn's officers cried out. "The flagship's shields are failing." Vorn gritted his teeth. The humans had made it clear. They were not going to let the Empire win. The battle was reaching its climax, and there was no turning back now. Every decision, every move, would determine the fate of the galaxy. The Empire's arrogance had led them to underestimate Earth. Now the consequences of that mistake were unfolding before their eyes. The Galactic Empire had never faced an enemy like this, and they were about to find out just how powerful the will of humanity could be. The final push. The battle raged on, an epic confrontation that seemed endless. The Imperial fleet, once an unstoppable force, was now struggling for survival. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. Their reinforcements had arrived, but it was too little, too late. The Earth fleet, though outnumbered, was relentless, pressing forward with fury and precision. Admiral Vorn stood at the command console of the Imperial flagship, his face pale and drawn. The loss of his fleet was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was not the end. Not yet. The Imperial Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries, and it would not fall so easily. "We cannot lose this battle, Captain," Vorn said through gritted teeth. "Prepare the last line of defense." Captain Lyra, standing beside him, looked back at the status screen, her face a mask of grim determination. "The humans are closing in. Our shields are at 40%, and our weapons are failing. We have no choice but to fight to the end." Vorn's fists clenched. He couldn't let the Empire fall. He would rather see the entire galaxy burn than be defeated by these humans who dared to defy them. The Earth fleet had proven itself unpredictable, but there was one final card left to play. The Empire's secret weapon. "Activate the quantum pulse cannon," Vorn ordered, his voice cold. "We will destroy their fleet in one blow." Captain Lyra hesitated. "Admiral, the quantum pulse cannon requires all remaining power to fire. If it fails, we'll have nothing left to defend ourselves with." Vorn's eyes darkened. "We don't need to defend ourselves. We need to win." Across the battlefield, Iris was watching the Imperial flagship's movements carefully. The Earth fleet was doing everything they could to avoid the full force of the Imperial counterattack, but it was becoming clear that the Empire's desperation would lead to something catastrophic. "Captain, the enemy flagship is charging up something large," Lieutenant Hawkins reported, his voice filled with concern. "It's their last weapon. We need to stop it before it's too late." Iris' heart pounded as she surveyed the situation. The Empire was preparing to unleash its most powerful weapon, and if it hit, it could obliterate the entire Earth fleet in a single blast. It was a risk they couldn't afford to take. "We need to take down the flagship now," Iris said, her voice sharp. "We can't wait for them to fire." With no time to waste, she gave the order. "All ships, focus fire on the Imperial flagship. We have to disable their weapon systems." Earth's fleet surged forward, their ships darting through the chaos of battle. The Imperial ships fought back with everything they had, but it was clear that the Earth fleet's sheer will and determination were too much for the Empire to handle. Earth's ships were fast, maneuverable, and precise, hitting the Imperial vessels with deadly accuracy. At the heart of it all, the Imperial flagship continued to charge its quantum pulse cannon, its energy levels rising to dangerous heights. Vorn's expression was one of absolute focus. He had nothing left but this final weapon. If it fired, it could end the battle in an instant. But Iris and her crew weren't about to let that happen. "Focus fire on the pulse cannon," Iris barked. "Disable it before they can fire." Earth's fleet unleashed a torrent of energy beams on the Imperial flagship, hitting it from all sides. Sparks flew from the enemy ship, and the energy around the quantum pulse cannon began to fluctuate. It was weakening. "We're losing power," Captain Lyra shouted from the command deck. "The pulse cannon is failing." Vorn slammed his fist on the console, his eyes wild with rage. "No, we will not be defeated." But despite his fury, there was nothing he could do. The Imperial flagship's power was draining rapidly, its systems overloaded by the Earth fleet's relentless assault. The quantum pulse cannon was now a useless husk, its energy reserves depleted. "We have to retreat," Captain Lyra said, her voice filled with defeat. "We've lost. The humans are unstoppable." Vorn's heart raced. The reality was sinking in. The Empire had been bested. Earth's fleet, though outnumbered, had proven itself more than a match for the might of the Galactic Empire. The Admiral's arrogance, his belief that the Empire could crush Earth with ease, had led to this moment. He had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now the consequences were clear. On the other side of the battlefield, Iris watched as the Imperial flagship's weapons failed. It was over. The Empire's greatest weapon was no longer a threat. The Earth fleet had succeeded. "Cease fire," Iris ordered. "The battle is won." A wave of relief swept through the fleet as the remaining Imperial ships began to retreat. The Earth fleet had done the impossible. They had repelled the mighty Galactic Empire and saved their planet from certain destruction. As Iris watched the Imperial ships flee into the depths of space, she couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Earth had stood strong, and humanity had proven once again that no enemy, no matter how powerful, could ever break their spirit. The battle was over. But the war for Earth's future had only just begun. The Empire might have been defeated, but there would be other challenges ahead. And humanity would face them all, together, with the same strength, unity, and determination that had led them to victory today. The galaxy would never forget the shockwave caused by Earth's hidden fleet. The Galactic Empire would never forget how they had laughed at Earth until the humans struck back. The aftermath and the dawn of a new era. As the dust settled across the battlefield, the Earth fleet remained steady in the vast silence of space. The once unified and invincible forces of the Galactic Empire had scattered into retreat, leaving behind only the remnants of their power. The fleet, having survived the overwhelming odds, now hovered in the void of space, victorious yet somber. Admiral Iris stood on the bridge of the flagship, her hands clasped behind her back, her eyes fixed on the starry horizon. The battle had been won, but the cost was not yet clear. Their victory had been hard-fought, and there was a sense that this was not the end of their struggle. The Empire had been humiliated, but it would not forget this defeat so easily. Iris knew that more challenges lay ahead. "We did it," Lieutenant Hawkins said quietly from his console, breaking the silence. Iris nodded but said nothing, the weight of their success hanging heavily in the air. Earth had faced unimaginable odds and had come out victorious. But the question remained, what now? What would the galaxy think of Earth after this? The message had been clear. Humanity was no longer a weak, insignificant planet. The Galactic Empire had mocked them, and now the Empire would pay the price. "We'll need to prepare," Iris said finally, her voice steady, but carrying the weight of experience. "The Empire may have retreated, but they won't stay down for long. We need to rebuild, to secure our position." "But how do we rebuild after this?" Lieutenant Hawkins asked, his brow furrowed as he looked at her. "We've exposed everything. The Empire knows what we're capable of now." "Let them know," Iris replied, turning toward the officer with a determined expression. "Let the galaxy know. Let them see that Earth is no longer just a home for humans. It is a force to be reckoned with. And if anyone dares to threaten us again, they'll face the same fury that destroyed the Empire's fleet." The crew members on the bridge exchanged uneasy glances, but Iris's conviction was enough to quiet their doubts. Earth had sent a message, and that message would echo across the galaxy for years to come. They weren't just a planet. They were a force capable of bringing down empires with nothing but grit, ingenuity, and relentless determination. As the fleet began its journey back to Earth, Iris could feel a sense of pride swelling within her. This wasn't just a military victory. It was a testament to humanity's strength. It wasn't just about weapons, tactics, or technology. It was about heart. It was about the human spirit, a force stronger than anything the Empire or any alien race could have imagined. But as Earth's fleet slowly moved away from the battleground, a new urgency gripped the hearts of those who had fought. The galaxy was watching. The Empire had been humbled, but the cosmos was vast, and there would be other threats. Humanity had just proven itself, but they could not rest on their laurels. To ensure their continued survival, to maintain the peace they had fought so hard to secure, they would need to be vigilant. "We'll need to form alliances," Iris said, her voice breaking the silence once more. "We can't do this alone. We need to ensure that other civilizations know the truth. We need to make sure that Earth's voice is heard in the Galactic Council. We need allies, and we need to prepare for what comes next." The fleet captain nodded. "It's going to be a long road ahead, Admiral. But after today, I think we've earned some respect." Iris's gaze hardened. "Respect isn't enough. We need strength. We need unity. And we need to be ready for the next battle." As the fleet made its way back to Earth, a new chapter of history was being written. The galaxy would remember the day the Galactic Empire was brought to its knees. Earth's hidden fleet had struck back when the Empire thought it could laugh at them. And in doing so, humanity had proven it was capable of far more than anyone had ever expected. The galaxy would change, and Earth would stand at the forefront of that change. The hidden fleet was just the beginning. The war for Earth's place in the galaxy was over, at least for now. But the journey for humanity had only just begun. The shockwave had been sent, and no one would ever forget the force that was Earth. As Iris looked out into the endless reaches of space, she knew one thing was certain. Earth had no intention of being anything less than the most powerful force in the galaxy. And they were just getting started. The universe would soon learn, when the humans are ready for war, nothing could stand in their way.